He did say he was going to come in and out, depending on his experience. If it were live, welcome. Good morning, everybody. And we are underway for our 27 November 2024 meeting. That's in March on Christmas. Martin, would you like to take the party this morning, please?
Kia ora. Tia te rito te hara tiki. Kei hea te komaka eto. Kai mai kai aho he atu te mai nui I aha te mai nui o te ao. Mako e kai atu, he tangata, hai.
Thanks, Marvin. To apologies, which we don't have any other than Nigel will be eventually in and out of the meeting, but he is joining us online. On page 7, you'll find the information minutes from our last meeting. If somebody had to move that those are accurate and correct. Thanks, Sally. Seconded back to Sarah. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Declarations of interest are outlined on page 21. If you can please remember to check those and step down from indicating that, step aside from your decision making and other thing that may have a real or perceived conflict. Otherwise, Community Board Chair update. Welcome, Lord.
Thank you. Just in time.
Just in time. Excellent. There's quite a few roadworks on the way, so
There's a lot.
yeah.
I didn't realise it was going to be up so soon.
It's all right. A minute.
So thank you for the opportunity once again. I guess the biggest news that we've got from the Teviot Valley is that we, following Russell's resignation as a board member, we have found a replacement for Russell. We've got a young fellow by the name of Curtis Pennant, and he's from a generational farming family in the valley and very interested in local government, and was involved in other organisations out, industry related organisation outside his day job on the farm. So we're pretty excited, and tomorrow we're having a meeting to formally approve his engagement on the board, and he'll be at our December 5 board meeting. And
It put a big smile on your darling.
oh, it is so cool to have someone from another generation on their board.
What do you mean?
We were like that here for a while too, until the young ones came along. Sorry.
No, we struggled in a small rural environment to get the interest of young people. And Mark spent a lot of time with Curtis and encouraged him to come along, and he's a smart young lad. When I say young lad, he's in his 30s. He's only half my age. Which is, yeah, and again, it's I'm hoping that, you know, in October next year we've got more younger people putting it in. So that's the big news. The other news is I think that we've been very successful with our boom retracting the boom mowing in the valley. We did a bit of a recce around the town the other day, and I'd say there's about 5% plus of residents and property owners coming alongside us and mowing. There's one or two that we've had to look at whether we put them back under the contract, simply because of there's one area in particular where there's a lot of CABC owned infrastructure and power infrastructure and all that sort of thing in this big boom. And we agreed this morning that perhaps that should come back under the contract. But mainly, there's a lot of agreement to it, which is good. The people taking being sort of socially responsible, helping neighbours out and so forth. So it's pleasing to see. What else is happening? I believe Tammy, you have a tour of the Millers Flat facilities,
That's brilliant.
including the sports grounds, which Mark is leading a rejuvenation of. There's quite a lot of interest in doing something with what used to be the bowling green, putting an astroturf in there to support their, I guess, the big events that happen in Millers Flat, like the Millers Flat Sevens tournament, which is netball and rugby. They were also looking at, I think, sort of doing up the bill. What's there, putting a tennis court in somewhere. I haven't really got too much information as to where, but it's a long term thing. So they'll be at some stage looking for support from the board and council at some stage. I guess help them over time. Nothing's been quantified in cost or anything like that, but no doubt over future LTP reviews there'll be something to come from that. But I think one of the great things from that is that, again, the next generation and the generations that follow are going to have a project to focus their fundraising. They do well with their pool. The community runs the pool. And it is quite successful. I mean, it costs, as we all know, pools cost a lot of money. And it's well supported by council and the board and so forth, with, I guess, grants that are made for their operational costs. But in terms of use, it's getting up there. Also sort of looking ourselves at what we should focus on for the upcoming LTP discussions. No one wants rates increases, so it'll be pretty, I guess, astute around what we asked for. And as I indicated last time, we're looking to develop our own master plan so we can focus community groups on external fundraising. You know, their efforts around fundraising. And Paul was a magnificent project that's now up and running. Nearly. What's the sign off? Imminent, isn't it, Sally?
Imminent?
Yeah. But I guess our want is to move away from putting upward pressure on our rates. So the more external funding that we can generate to create more facilities or better facilities made around Grover Hill, King George Park,
They kind of come down and see it.
Yeah. They're reasonably well attended. It's, it all depends what time of day. That they have these things, but we're well supported, with Teviot Prospects as well. It's another group that sort of is our project group, if you like. That sits alongside community organisations as a go-to. But I guess the master plan is going to incorporate the outcomes of the spatial plan, the open spaces strategy, and the community plan, and it's places in the community plan we've got at the moment. Draft was drawn up in 2011, so it's probably time for a new one. But again, it's sort of the focus of what the board is doing is trying to steer it away from demanding ratepayer input, which is going to be difficult. You know, we've all, you know, with the spatial plan, for example, we want to be sure that our infrastructure isn't going to inhibit any growth that was forecast in the or projected out of the spatial plan development. You know, I think there's another 500 homes included in that long-term part of the spatial plan. I think it's 500.
It is.
Which is significant
Yeah.
for a town our size. But I get the feeling that we are going to see quite a bit of growth in Roxburgh. Just the underlying feeling that you get with, I mean, in the last 12 to 18 months, there's been 12 houses built in Roxburgh. It's unheard of.
Yeah, it's pretty good. And Norman, I was just going to mention too that that we are adopting the spatial plan today, which has been a huge amount of work, and I think that's really exciting that we've got to this point that we're ready to adopt the spatial plan, because we have gone for really high growth, aspirational, and I think that's great for our community that we're looking aspirationally into the future.
Yeah, and I've got to thank the team for the inclusion of the board and the development of the spatial plan and the community at large. I've gone above and beyond to get our property, and it's been pretty important. And from what we've seen, the outcome is fantastic. So I'm pretty keen to make sure that our infrastructure and our investment in infrastructure is going to support that plan. Which is, I guess, one of the things that would be useful for us is the plan that you guys, well, not the plan, but the work, the research that you guys did for Vincent and Cromwell to identify pressure points in the infrastructure, Jill?
So I will be coming to Teviot to give a presentation on our long-term plan proposals for 3 waters. Unfortunately, the meeting was the day in my meeting, so.
Right. Yeah.
So I've still come to Teviot and I'll give you an update. But we look at it across the district.
Yeah. No, I mean, over in Roxburgh East, there's sort of some encouragement in the spatial plan to develop too, over there. I know south into town there we could potentially be another 100 sections developed down there in town. And whether the infrastructure is going to cope with that or not, I'm not sure.
I think part of that, as I had talked to someone who's proposed to develop North District East, the question is going to be, and this will be a question that I will be bringing back to council, is the extension of infrastructure to service that land. Who pays? Because it's not necessarily council who pays for that extended infrastructure to service the land.
Well, there's all those sort of questions, but what I'm highlighting now is that we're aware of aware of what's going on, looking into the future. Of course, there's the delegations discussion to be had now. We're sort of through the digitalisation discussion. Talking amongst the board members, they're unclear what this is going to mean for us and what it is actually going to involve. So we're pretty keen to get more information around that. And last but not least is the rerouting of the cycle trail, or the completion of the cycle trail between Alex and Roxburgh. And we want to be able to support that as best we can. So it's not now our remit as such to get it completed. So important. It's so important to our economic development as a host community. We are pretty keen to see that completed, and whatever council can do to help us will help that. We're keen for those discussions. If anyone can help us in that direction, I know we've had that discussion.
I believe so.
Yeah. So it's, growth is key for us, and we're ready. We want to be ready for it, which is pretty cool. And we've got a board that is keen to support that. And that's all about all from me. Got any questions?
I've just been following the journey of a couple of energetic ladies that have searched all around for a home that would suit them, that's affordable, working in Alexandra, and they've just bought in Roxburgh East.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's where they chose to go to, because it would be that they could find it all around.
Yeah. There's a lot of good stories around people sort of coming out of big smoke, whether it be Auckland, Christchurch, or Invercargill, and landing in Roxburgh and just so enjoying it.
We've got some Aucklanders that just arrived about a week ago because they've been in my shop. They've just bought down your end of town, actually.
Yeah.
There's a lot of exciting things. Flat the other day, it was buzzing. There were so many people around cycling. The pool was looking amazing and the kids were over there swimming. The community centre, it's holding tide, but it's pristine and it's being cared for immaculately.
Yeah.
The community there are doing a wonderful job.
And encouraging investors and towns. And it's not just property investors, it's people that want to come and set up businesses. And we'll
Run cafes.
We are providing opportunity.
But at Melbourne,
Evening dining.
What's that?
at Melbourne, there's a bit of a
Yes.
bring back, what's the population of Central Otago as a percentage over 65? A bit like the Minnetonka become a retirement town,
Exactly.
and then your houses are taken up by those people rather than ones that are setting up the businesses. Or-
Yeah.
So is there any way that you can?
It's not necessarily a bad thing to be a retirement
Mm.
town now. It used to be you retired and then you had a couple of years left of life before you
Central
picked
Otago
it, but
is
now
just about,
people who are in 65 have got 20 or 30 years of really active living involved in communities. So just it's not necessarily a bad thing to have
Experience
older
on
people.
And that's so true. I mean, I didn't get
65 is the new 45.
when we started when I was 16. I chair the Rest Home Trust, and we're looking at building some independent living units with outside investment. And the lines are right behind us.
Good place to move to, isn't it?
Looking to
Ian, have you got a question?
Just in the special planning document that housing occupancy was 79%. Are those 21% of the houses getting most of those on there?
the absentee owners. And it would be the holiday home.
It's probably pretty similar to the district.
Yeah, and well, that's a good thing, and it's about, like it. Here's how often they use them is the issue for us. But come summer in the fruit season, you see a lot more. That would probably head towards 95% occupancy. And it's a fair go.
This is that average taken throughout the whole year, or is it just taken at a particular time?
Oh, you get that scared.
Yeah. So would be over.
Parts of the year, it's sort of 60%.
Yeah, I don't know. I think through this quite true. So it's all with you. We'll cover that off maybe the next part because we're still actually in the presentation. So, yeah.
So there we
Wonderful.
go, folks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. Travelling up.
Doing that for your benefit.
Now we welcome Anne to talk
When he
about the
starts
Tibet Valley Flashback.
Then we'll turn
Yeah,
it.
It's all right, we don't expect you to have stats to hand. Oh, no,
Studying it long.
It did come from the census data.
Yeah.
The information, so, that will be based on, yeah, and I think that the, following on to that conversation, if it's okay, what Dawn said about the, holiday times, that's probably, a true example, for example, of the street that I happen to live in today. The street that I live in, I've got 3 around me that are holiday houses, but they're regular holiday makers, so they come up usually every second or third weekend they're there and they send large chunks of the holiday periods. So, you know, but it is, rather than Airbnb. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Fire away.
So firstly, I'll start with there's a few minor editorial amendments that we that may hopefully circulated to the councillors. Apologies for that. The last version that went up onto our document management system didn't have the final changes in it, so hopefully you've got those changes now. The editorial only, there's nothing substantive to mention. So today we're asking council to adopt the Tibet Valley Spatial Plan. It's the 3rd spatial plan that CRDC has undertaken following the Formula 1 in 2019 and Vincent in 2022. The spatial plans provide a high level 30-year plan horizon, enabling us to manage growth in a sustainable way in terms of accessibility, housing choice and infrastructure. We've been working with the community in Tibet Valley and key stakeholders since mid-2022. The key stakeholder group we set up initially included community members, horticultural and primary industry representatives, business owners, the Kaha and Taga Regional Council. We had 2 initial workshops with this group and we met them a number of times during the process to check in as we were getting more information coming in and starting to firm up what we were thinking and where findings were. We also had regular check-ins with the Tibet Valley Community Board, and we're really grateful for the generosity of the time, the participants in terms of the time that they put in, because for the key stakeholder group in particular, there were several days involved in them giving up their time, which we really appreciate. In addition to working with the stakeholder group, we have multiple public meetings across the valley that were really well attended. Almost filling the Ettrick and Mothers Flat halls, which is great. So we could try and understand what the visions and the aspirations of those smaller communities were, and they are very different in terms of what they want and what they're thinking. So we have accommodated that within the spatial plan based on the feedback that we got from the speaker. We also met with a couple of classes at the Roxburgh Area School, and that's always really quite refreshing. We get a very different viewpoints from the students than we do from the adults, and that's really quite important because they are the future, I guess, in terms of what we're planning for in this 30 years cycle. So following the initial workshops, we had discussions, workshop and discussions where a draft plan was released to the wider public. And we have to sort some feedback on that. Part of this process, there was quite a number of drop-in sessions. There's an online survey and not a great number through the survey, but we got really good support for the drop-ins and the discussions that we had at various times of the day across the valley. And we got some really, really good feedback through that process, having those discussions with the people that were popping in to see what we were up to and giving us some feedback. So a lot of this is verbatim, so we've included that in the appendices because that was where we got most of our feedback from through the community. And it was really quite well over 120 people we spoke to, which is quite a lot in terms of the valley. And if we had got those for the survey, we would have been very happy about it. But we did get feedback, so I'm really pleased about that. Quebec Valley has some unique challenges in terms of natural hazards. There's an alluvial fan hazard that runs through the Roxburgh Township. This is something we've been working with the Otago Regional Council with, which is one of the reasons why we have Jean-Luc, who's the hazard manager from the Regional Council at the initial meeting, and he's been with us all the way through. It is challenging. There are a number of, there are some houses that are in the area that's mapped currently in the Regional Council database, but that are shown as potentially risky in terms of that level of fan hazard. So that data, that information is done at a very high level. So where we are at the moment, we've been working with the Otago Regional Council. Who have just let contract to have a further investigation at land use level for it. So in the plan, we've identified it as the illegal fan as an investigation area because we don't have that information, but we should have that information in the new year. So they're working on that at the moment. So to understand the level of risk to those property owners. That's not new, it's been mapped by the Regional Council for some time. And we really appreciate that they've prioritised it for us and are doing this piece of work that will give us a little bit more information about the actual risk to those properties, because there are quite a few properties in that area. So we're working through that. The community, it was really interesting because Cheviot Valley is one of the slower growing in terms of our growth projections. So it's one of the slower growing wards or areas, and the key stakeholder group we worked through all said that they were looking for an aspirational growth, which is beyond what the growth projections are. So aspirational growth is 50% above. Which in the terms of the Cheviot Valley is providing for an additional 540 houses over the next 30 years, and that's across all townships. So that is what they've chosen, and that's what we've planned around. So one of the things with that, a very key message we got was about productive soils. So it's something that's really important to the valley. They did not want to encroach into the rural productive land, so we've kept it tight. Really tight and pulled back in one area where it was rural residential, but it's actually currently a productive orchard. So there's a firmness to kind of keep it tight and stay away from those productive areas. Yeah, so it's that. So I guess one of the, in terms of what the plan is proposing, there's medium density within the Roxburgh Township itself, around the main part of the town. The community very strongly bought 2-story rather than 3-story, and the council may not remember, apologies, but in Plan Change 19 in Cromwell and in Alexandra it was 3-story for medium density, but for Clyde it was 2-story. So the feeling was that for that medium density in Roxburgh, because of the nature of the town, the main street, that 2-story is more appropriate here. A ribbon of large lot residential. There wasn't a lot of large lot residential lifestyle, so it's providing that opportunity for people to have a slightly larger block, but keeping it off the rural, so we're not ending up encroaching into the rural. So that's in Roxburgh East and around Ladysmith Road. So there's a ribbon there of large lot residential. Industrial zoning is consolidated around where the wastewater plants are in Roxburgh East.
A new settlement zone is what we're thinking for, a rural settlement zone for, Roxburgh Hydro Village and Ettrick and Miller's Flat. And what that does is it provides flexibility. So rather than have 4 properties that are residential and 2 that are commercial when you're dealing with a small village, you have a settlement zone that enables a little bit of both at a certain scale. So you get that little bit of flexibility. We do have examples in the current plan on that, and that's in places like Lauder. So Lauder's got a similar kind of regime that falls on the residential provisions. So we'll be looking at that in the next 12 months when we start opening the rules for that, what that settlement zone looks like and what level of commercial. It is a low level of commercial, it's not major.
No.
So just that kind of flexibility. And the other thing is just a new cycle trail network proposed, linking the village with the Litchfield Gorge and Hoover Gold Trails, as well as existing, as well as a number of other tracks. And one of the things that the community was really keen on was exploring in the future sort of the option of a walking and cycling bridge at Ettrick that will provide a loop round for people to get off the trail and come into the Ettrick township. And that seems to be something that the community is quite keen to look at. So, and that's the main things. I hope to answer any questions.
Great, thank you very much, Anne. Questions? Yes.
Well, I have a couple.
Yeah.
And just this is on page, I think it's 14 of your report of the spatial plan. The 2022 growth projections, are they likely to be any different now that we've got census information for 2023?
They could be, yeah, they could be. We do need to probably check in on that. So, I wouldn't anticipate them being vastly different, but yeah. What we have noticed anecdotally is there's an awful lot of building going on in Roxburgh at the moment, compared to what has been in the last decade or so. Yeah, so there's houses popping up everywhere. So I would imagine that we are probably moving a little bit, but whether or not it's within the census.
Okay.
That was just the latest information that we have available to us.
Okay, thank you. And there's a couple of comments. One is in relation to Ettrick, which looks like page 50. And it's that comment in the water supply side and the private, and this is it's on page, I can't see the little page number, in relation to Miller's Flat comments.
Yeah.
I see that there's 30 connections. Is that council owned?
No.
So they're private, so they're going to be
Yeah, so there's no reticulation and no community, no council reticulation in Ettrick or Miller's Flat. The Miller's Flat has a water scheme that's run by the community, a very efficient one with seems to be run by some very capable people. So they've got capacity for additional water in Miller's Flat. In Ettrick, for growth to occur in Ettrick, but there needs to be some kind of solution found for that. So that's not on the short term, that's a long term. Yeah, so there's no reticulated water or wastewater for either of those terms.
Okay, and just in relation to the huts, I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this, but just can you please remind me as to the status of the huts around Lake Onslow?
The huts.
Yeah, so you've got there's a comment in there about the hut.
Oh,
Concern about the private land that surrounds where the huts are being built.
yeah, that in Lake Onslow.
Yes, it's Lake Onslow.
Okay. Yeah, so I don't know, sorry, I don't know the land status of that, but it would be O&L.
Yeah.
And most of those huts, I know more probably about Paulburn
Yeah.
in terms of so I would imagine similar status, that's my understanding from that.
Okay. So is there any issue for council going forward with if there's a continuation of building of huts?
Yeah, it's a challenge for Paulburn as well, so it's a compliance monitoring issue, because that we're aware. Some years ago, we got a council staff member to go out and document, so we have a line in the sand for Paulburn, and we know that there's a lot happened since then, so it's a compliance monitoring issue, yeah. But I have to say it's not something that we monitor.
Okay. And then following on from that, it's point number 5 straight after that one was other general comments, it says they're looking at just general, possibly better road access through Thompson's Track. Is that a different track down in? That's not Thompson's Track as in Vincent Ward. I wasn't sure what that was referring to. But is that, there could be something down
Yeah,
there.
there's something in, there's a road in Thompson's Track, but yeah, that's out there.
That's in the,
That's my understanding.
okay.
Got one on.
Yeah, hold on, sorry, Neil, since this is actually your portfolio and I pinched the paper, perhaps you would like to take your comments and then take charge. Sorry.
It's all right. I wasn't going to make a deal of it. And you mentioned about, the community was quite clear about not going into the rural and the productive land side of things, which we said in Cromwell as well, pretty much too.
Yeah.
Is there any way through this plan that we can recognise the fact that despite that, there are going to be those that want to? And we're going to,
Yes.
and that there will be people that will say, hey, I just live on the outskirts over at Roxbury East or wherever it is, and I'm in a bit of rural land, but I want to have a 2,000 square metre section type thing. I'm not sure that can the plan, or can the implementation of it make sure that is a very clear message that's left, so people don't have this expectation, because it seems that no matter what happens with district plans and spatial plans, there are still people in the community, and some are here now and some are yet to come, who think actually this should be made to that.
I think that's probably not for the spatial plan, but
No.
definitely for, I mean, particularly with the rural, we are looking, as you'll be, Neil, next year, we'll be looking at the rural section. We could put something in here to beef that up if you wanted.
Well, I'm always loath to change a document that's had all the good work done, and it's more what will follow from that. So I think that I've raised it, that it's on the radar for the future, but it's a clear steer from the community. And I just think that it's really important that we've got the spatial plan,
Yeah.
but that clarity is not lost. And even, as it comes out now saying, hey, this means this community has said quite unequivocally, we don't want to put residential stuff there or there, it's in here.
Yeah.
And I guess what it should signal, in my view, would be that, and if it is going to go here or here, then that's plan change material. That's not ad hoc resource consenting, which gets councils and
I
districts.
think that's the communication side of it.
Yeah.
That's when we get to that rural stuff.
It'll be picked up there.
We are, as you already know, that's something that the panel's been grappling with for a while in terms of that creep into the.
I think you give me the answer, of course, that when it comes time to implement rural plan changes or other plan changes, then these spatial plans are going to inform that, and that's where the rubber will hit the road.
Yeah.
About saying quite clearly the community said this.
Yes.
Because what worries me is that the community said that now until it comes to my piece of land that I want to do, and they'll have a different view.
Yeah, there are ways through the objective and policy framework in the district plan to make it very clear what's expected. So we can actually let me know that there. Go back to Councillor Patterson. Sorry, I was a little bit shocked about the Onslow thing. This is feedback, this is in the appendice, and this is the feedback we got from the community. I was thinking, I'm sure that we pulled the Onslow stuff out. So that was just the back part of that is the document is the verbatim comments that came through the feedback. Sorry. So yeah, so that's the appendix. So it's just feedback, but because we originally had, when we first started this project, the Onslow was still on the table. So we had to make a call as to how we managed that, and we had to have it in the discussion at that time, so it was taken off the table. And it's not part of the actual spatial plan, but it was just some of the verbatim comments. It's really something in the actual spatial plan itself.
No, that's right. That'll be the same comments in relation to the Thompson's Track,
Yes.
which I'm picking is.
Yeah.
It's true.
Page 57, on the constraints, in Gonzaga Regional Council, the water plan identifies vulnerable groundwater aquifers that may be susceptible to contamination with surface activities. Is that relating to the septic, no septics at Roxburgh, or is it?
Yeah, so there's groundwater protection zone in Roxburgh Hydro Village, and also the whole electric basin is a groundwater protection zone. So it's really challenging putting septic tanks in there. So they have to be a certain type. For example, Benja Cafe, they had to a fairly significant system in there when they put their visitor accommodation in.
So it's human rather than agricultural line.
Yeah, yes. That's the restrictions around it.
Sally?
I haven't got a question, but I just, on behalf of the Tevette Valley, want to thank you for the work that you've done and that you listened to the feedback from our community and that you were aspirational in putting the plan together. So thank you.
Thanks, I appreciate it. It was fun and personal for me as well.
Lily?
Can't even type on it. No. On page 14.
Oh, we know that one, yeah.
Oh, existing infrastructure. Yeah. Have I gone into the wrong one?
Apologies for that, it's the email problem.
Yeah, I thought I opened it, the correct fact I've opened it only.
Apologies for that.
Sorry, I'm not opened it.
Anything else? No? Well, just to reiterate what Sally said, it's a pretty intense piece of work, and having seen the common one work through and how that comes out and watching these as I'm going to say they get better and better because we know and understand, communities know and understand things all the way through. So by the time we get them all done, we'll be back to the start again. And I mean that because the trouble is that one of the risks is that it will evolve and it will become irrelevant in a potentially a short space of time.
Yeah.
But it is for now and it's done with the right intention. So the recommendation is on page 26. That we receive the report and accept the level of significance, and then we adopt the Tevette spatial plan. Someone like to move, please. You will. Oh, really? I wasn't even going to look at you, and you just bullied your way into it. And Martin, would you like to second that? Thank you. Any more discussion? I'll put that all in favour.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. Good work, Anne. What's next?
I need mummy a toto, isn't it?
Good luck with that.
These won't be wearing Hawaiian shirts over there.
Hearing aids, aren't they? That's what they wear there.
Oh, I'm done.
Oh, you're
All
right.
right, Molyneux Stadium, item 24.13.4, and we've got Tara.
So this report is to consider the status of the Molyneux Stadium and potentially a stage of the approach for maintenance and compliance work to retain the building and bring it up to standard. I'll take the report as read. A quantity surveyor's estimate was obtained, which provides an updated estimate of costs for the earthquake strengthening, estimated costs for asbestos removal, feasibility and fire safety upgrades and maintenance items from the building condition assessment. And on page 88, table 1, that sets out all those costs. And as you can see there, in the first 10 years, we've got a total of 5.6 million roughly, with 4.5 for earthquake strengthening in year 3, and then a total of around 12 million for over the 30 years to bring them to standard. As a comparison, a new build, which is a conservative estimate, could be 15 million. That's not including demolition and some costs. So the VCB, the Vincent Community Board, also considered this in the 29th of October, and their recommendations were to approve the staged investment approach and recommend to council to approve an estimated 1.2 million for maintenance and refurbishment work over 9 years to put into the draft long-term plan, and that to be funded from the Vincent Community Board reserves, and also for the 4.43 million for earthquake strengthening to also be included in the draft long-term plan in year 3. So the recommendations are to approve those resolutions which were recommended by the Vincent Community Board.
Thank you. Any questions? Tracy?
Probably just a more comment for this board here. The VCB did question Gareth quite heavily about the cost of asbestos removal and how significant it is, I should say. So, but Gareth assures us that that is market value. And yeah, so just because it is, you know, you're talking some pretty significant numbers. So VCB has questioned a lot and looked at this quite carefully.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I was just going to ask that what we're putting here as numbers in the long-term plan, are they likely significant enough that they will be front and centre of people's minds, so we get the feedback from the community about this? Because I'm sure there's going to be a bit of interest from the wider district, well, there should be, at least in understanding what's happening. Is that my expectation correct?
Something that's going to be part of the consultation.
Yes, I hate to think it's just a line item, otherwise it gets lost in the mix, because I think as we've gone down this journey of district funding things, and this is a change, but if one was 25%, I think district funded, going to the whole hog, I think it's really important that the rest of the district sits up and understands how this is going to be working, because I think it's a good example of how we're going to get better outcomes with the change that we've made.
I just wondered if, because we talked about it a bit at the Vincent Community Board, and whether Garrett and Tara, it was worth covering off, I guess, the longer term implications for the stadium, with the idea that this is not just money and then in 3 or 4 years' time we go, oh no, we're going to build a new one. Maybe if you could highlight kind of what this will enable in development training.
Yeah, so without maintenance, the stadium's remaining useful life could be 25 years. But by doing this program of work, it's going to extend it out to 50 years. So it extends the remaining life of the useful life of the building.
And beyond. So good maintenance programs can extend the life of all of it. So, I think from, like, I've always, as the management hat on, I always say how sweating is to get the best use out of it. And when the report came across my desk and I saw it still at 25 years, that's the light bulb moment going, hang on a second, we need to actually do very little investment up front and actually get the longevity out of the building in the long term.
And the ongoing maintenance over the next 10 years, I mean, that would, even if you build a new building, you'd still have those ongoing maintenance. Yeah.
I think the comment was the building still has good bones.
Yes.
And there are some things coming that'll pretty it up a little.
The whole of the external claddings that could be like.
Sure. Speaking of brick shit.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, can I please have someone move, so just A, B, C, D and E? Do you want me to read it out? Or are you happy just to move all of those? Martin and Tracy? Right, all those in favour? Against? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so next we have item 24.13.5 grants policy, and it looks like that is going to be Dylan, page 167.
I'll excuse myself because I have a particular interest.
Martin, do you? Thank you, Martin.
Right, good morning. Thank you. I will obviously take the report as read. As you'll know, as many of you sat through both community board and council, we went through a series of workshops as part of the review of the grants policy. So this is of course the community grants that go through both council and community boards, and also the promotions grants that are held with the community boards. And so this is part of our annual review, LTP review process of this policy. And so we're here now with the final version of the policy to, I guess, get any feedback that you might have, hopefully adoption, and also endorsement of the event framework, which Ian's might like to just briefly speak to.
Morning. So the event framework that's included here was referenced in the policy discussions, and it was one of the outcomes sitting in the destination management plan around looking at how we support events. That's something that the community see in the research of the destination management plan. They wanted Central Otago to be a place that celebrates events of all types. And it's some work that we've had ongoing. It's just really defining how TCO, council and stakeholders can work together to really ensure that we've got wide benefits to the events in the district, and what opportunities there are for us to kind of grow and harness those benefits to the district. So got an action plan there, high level around what types of events we already have, and how they can be grouped together, and then some actions that we can work on what event from this. value of our community.
So hopefully no surprises in there, what we'll reflect it on in the workshops, so open to questions.
Page 2 of the policy, 175 of our agendas. Maybe me just being semantics, instead of saying locals, would you say residents? So write it in the red part, promotions and events grants under definitions, funding for events or activities that enhance the experience of locals and visitors, would you not say residents? I don't know, maybe it's semantics. I don't know what other people, I just thought residents actually.
Either or you that communities, right?
Yeah.
Communities probably more our common language.
Yeah,
Just, we can change that.
just unless anyone else has got any other.
Yeah.
I just got a couple as well, and the first one is that a little bit about the technical side of the policy, that's for 4 years. And if I read things correctly, we put the policy in place back in 22. We did 2 years, now we're doing it again for 4. I suggest that's a long time between drinks in a pretty evolving climate that we've got at the moment around grant funding for organisations from everywhere, not just us. And I'm just wondering if I know it can come back sooner, but my gut feel says that it's probably, I'd rather see a 2-year roll on this one with what's happening in the world. Just
I think I'll also put that in there to be consistent with other policies. But actually, I guess maybe I hadn't actually looked at that, was that this should align with the LPD reviews.
Well, yes, that's even better. Well, I was on the right track then. I knew I had a reason, didn't work out what it was.
2 years would.
Yeah.
2 years gets it right. Oh, look at that, I knew. Yeah. And only other point I've got is that I guess, and it's about the climate about grant funding, because it's really tough out there, and I see that with things that come across my desk, with my work out on, with what people are trying to get support for, and just whether our policy is not potentially too restrictive about multi-year funding of big community type things. And I'll call it out, it's the Blossom Festival. You go, hey, I'm not sure this community's of a view that we should not be committing to that for a longer term type thing. And our policy, is it too tight to give us that scope? Because I think that's the important thing. It's about scope. It's not about whether you do it or not. It's about the scope to be able to consider those sort of things. Because the worst thing is I find at the table is you've got a policy, you can't do that. Oh, what's a great policy? Can't even talk about it. I've got to change the policy first.
Yeah.
It just seems to be a really, I'm not trying to look for a rule to get around everything. People would say they usually do. But I think you need to think about saying, well, don't tie yourself in knots by something that actually makes doing the right thing too bloody hard.
Yes, there is still discretion left with the community groups around funding beyond that. Trying to find that.
But that's the key thing, because the boards will be front and centre for this. But if the council policy says they can't, then their arms up their back and they can't do it, and that's just plain wrong.
But through the workshop, there was specific conversation about whether there should be multi-year funding for events. And all feedback was that there should not be multi-year for a number of reasons. And so to change that, so it is a clear policy, it is in the, so to provide multi-year funding for events such as the Blossom Festival is not permitted under this.
And so the Vincent Community Board are happy with that?
Yes.
Really? Wow.
And they specifically, not just about in general, but for that particular.
Yeah.
Well, there's me.
Sorry, I was thinking you were meaning like the lifetime of funding of the event, but you're talking about actually allocating multi-year funding in year one.
Yeah, for events like that, because.
So, all community boards were consistent in events because of the dynamics of events. And we're seeing that right now, actually, aren't we? We're seeing a couple of events already all over, which have been successful in the past, that they shouldn't be able to get multi-year funding.
There was a discussion around it, that events, yes, you could say, well, that's a nice idea, but there were actually potentially some unintended consequences of that. There's nothing stopping you from getting funding for the same event every year, but there were some challenges in it.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't set your policy highlighting one particular event and saying this sits separately was the.
Oh, no, yeah, I don't think-
Was the attention.
I don't think you want to highlight a particular event. I think you want the scope to better identify an event and go, oh, I need to be in here. And I guess if I take some of the more recent ones that, have come, and we've done 3-year deals with one of those adventure type things, didn't we do, or 2-year deal or something? We, two, I think we did a second one on. Anyway, so if the board's saying that I want scope to do that, well, far be it from me to say that doesn't make sense to me, anyway.
Simply, so lots of goes through that, applying for an event, promotion of event grants, and all boards balances and the promotions of these grants should not be able to be allocated on a multi-year basis over 40 years. So basically, the way you could change that, if council wanted to look at that, would be looking at council funding philosophies or at alignment. Would be your other way of approaching it. Not sure it's that's what I want to
I mean,
do.
as a general rule for you, Chair, grants should be contestable. And if you give them out for multi-years, they're no longer contestable. And Blossom might be fantastic now, but there might be something else that you want to support. It's not saying you can't support Blossom Festival every year. It just has to be a contestable process that people have to apply to.
And there's a couple of quite big events in Queenstown that have been around for years, but they've folded and they're no longer. So Winter Festival, Winter Festival.
Show.
Yeah.
Challenge Monaco.
Yeah, Challenge Monaco. Yeah.
That have just
Yeah.
the way matter. So the event and the event sector is very dynamic and change quite quickly. That is why we recommend that you wouldn't want to multi-year funding. And we have, I'm trying to remember what year it was, but we have had to pull a grant back from Blossom Festival previously due to COVID when they had been allocated on the grant. We had to pull back. We've got.
I think there was, because the intention was there mainly, but then the realities of it were, there was too big a gap to bridge. It's not to say that you can't give money to an event every year if it's going ahead and the policy allows that. But it also factors in some of those unintended consequences that can arise from circumstances beyond our control.
I would have thought for event organisers in a volunteer capacity, especially, largely, that if every supporter of their event said, I'm not going to give you a multi-year deal, then they're not going to last much longer, some of those.
I gave a Taylor Community Trust, just because of my experience around their decision making, Taylor, to give us no events multi-year funding. And it's because of the point that Peter made about contestability of grants. And so they're major events across the district, the region, that are only ever annually funded.
Because of the insecurity of not having a multi-year funding, though, you're likely to lose key figures. Yeah. And make these things a success. That would be
That's always the challenge of running an event, is that you've got a couple of people in charge of seeking the funding and
Hence, possibly speak to this with his own event management hat on in his own personal capacity, but my experience with Velocity is that it's always been an annual application. After that was removed from being a line item, and it's been a successful process to that. And so, speaking of personal capacity as an event organizer,
but
the process is quite common, right?
Yeah, I think from a event funding across the country, and this is what came through in some of the research we did with the event framework is, it is consistent across the country in terms of an annual process. There is a secondary part to that it doesn't stop the multi-year, and with the feedback from the boards, and this was the multi-year, coming back was we had wording in there around should be moving to be self-sustainable in 3 years. That's been extended out to 5.
Yeah.
And those policy.
Never going to be self-sustainable.
So it says, the word report, so this is on page 3 of the policy. Page of the agenda, page, sorry, 176. So it says under financial requirements, it is required that applicants for the promotions and events grants have the potential to become self-sustaining and can demonstrate a plan to deliver on this. Promotion and events funding is available on an annual basis over a period of up to 5 years per event. Applicants must apply each year and council do not guarantee the success of any future application. For clarity, the relevant community board has the discretion to reduce or extend this timeframe based on information provided by the group or individual when their accountability reporting back to the board. So that's giving the boards, so it's generally saying the rules 5 years per event, but the boards have discretion to extend or reduce that. So there's that discretion that Neil was looking for in the multi-year, but it's annual up to 5 years, but it could be longer if the board so chooses.
A lot of events that are never going to be self-sustaining, isn't there? Otherwise we don't need sponsors.
I thought we said preferred, not required. So we look through. On page 168 of the agenda.
No, it's preferred the applicant.
We put preferred applicant.
There is one. We're really great. There's two more spare. You're for sound.
Sorry.
168.
168.
Under financial requirements.
Yeah.
So just to, just to do, check some of that.
Paragraph 3, right down the bottom of the second.
Promotions and events grants. And then tightening the self-sustaining, the previous iteration of the policy stated. I thought we were keeping that preferred and not making it a required.
Just trying to find feedback page. Yeah, it's clear on the culture that actually experiment.
I guess the important thing is also, at the, with the start of this policy coming into play, that we then had, start of timeframe for some of these entities, like the Blossom Festival, like other things that have had more. And then does that 5 year time, arguably the 5 year time period start?
Well, the time can be
extended.
I guess that required leaves no room for any grey area in a policy.
Yeah.
And occasionally we need to operate in the grey area.
Yeah. We've just got one as well, and some feedback, so we'll change that reference.
Anything else? Okay, right, so, option 1 recommended to approve the grants policy and endorse the event framework.
Can we just incorporate in that, the thing one, incorporating these two amendments, two changes?
The two, okay.
Which was residents to locals to resident,
Communities.
Yeah, to communities.
and, required to pursue.
And review date.
Yes.
And that the review cycle would, correspond to future long-term plans, is that
Yeah.
sufficient?
Makes sense.
So Sarah, once you've got that, if we could read that out, that would be great.
No, it's not, just a long.
Right, so, letting the change.
Sorry, just on that communities, I would argue that local, that visitors make up communities, and so I think residents is probably better too.
Just have that side of the conversation. Sorry, Tara.
Local to.
Another change. Residents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll be noted that it would read preferred rather than required.
We need to reference where that is.
Yeah.
The financial requirements.
Noted that, yeah, is it financial sustainability?
Yeah,
Would be,
noted that financial sustainability would read preferred.
yeah.
Read preferred rather than required. It would also be updated to be on a 3-year cycle consistent with reduction of the long-term plan.
I wouldn't put 3-year and just put LTP cycle.
Yes.
It's just that way, if it changes again, you don't have that situation there.
And it would also be updated to be consistent with the adoption of the long-term plan.
Yeah.
And C, invested evidence framework.
Sorry, just for says it would also be updated. Could we say it would be reviewed to be consistent?
Yeah.
Long-term plan. And C, invested evidence framework. Can I have someone move that?
Cheryl and Tracy second. All those in favour? Against? Carried.
Thank you.
Useful.
Stuart?
Cheers. 24.13.6 bridge postings. Welcome. Holly and QB.
I just want to take a moment and introduce Holly Leverett, who is our new roadie asset.
What sort of roads are you?
Yeah.
They check once.
Yeah.
Cool. Just wanted to introduce Holly Leverett. Holly's been with us 6 months, now in the roading team. This is a roading asset engineer. And obviously first time in front of the council today. I'll hand over to Holly.
Welcome.
Good morning. Okay. Just providing some information about bridge postings this morning. I'm taking the report as read. However, just as a bit of an overview, a bridge posting is specific for heavy vehicles and it is a weight or speed restriction on the bridge. Just to protect our road users and to hopefully extend the longevity of the bridges themselves. So earlier in the year, we engaged a chartered structural engineer to review 44 bridges across our network. They were either already posted or had known structural things that we just wanted to check. Based on that, 15 of the bridges required amendments to the existing posting and 10 required a new posting. So we put a particular emphasis on any communities or properties that may have been, we say isolated, but if that the only route in and out was with a bridge that was posted, we have contacted those properties just to discuss that, ask them a few questions and just get a feel for how those bridges are used. Overall, that's been really helpful and quite positive as well. And just helps us plan moving forward. So in regards to the next steps, we're looking at ordering the signage, and then we need to advertise locally, just to sort of let everyone know that these are coming. We also need to provide NZPA some guidance of that advertisement as well. Then we can look at installing those and they become legally enforceable. Any questions?
Questions?
How is it policed?
So it is enforceable by the New Zealand Police. If we have got any complaints or anything, we can actually go through. There is a local contact that we have, I believe, that we can advise. If they can go through any
Equal policing unit.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you've got to get out and novel them.
Yes.
And it has to be in response to somebody loaning them.
Or if we knew of something, or if the police might target that, if we had any concerns around that, it would be the community letting us know that they've seen vehicles using. And there is sort of steps in making this enforceable, and that's the having it advertised, having it on the website, making sure these are re-inspected on a certain frequency, and all of that. So we're getting all that set up in place to make sure that we do have the protection in place and the enforcement in place if people do abuse those restrictions. So it's very
Tracy?
Yeah, contained throughout this report, there's quite a few recommendations for some smaller works. How are we tracking for getting those done?
Yes, so we essentially those minor works are bridge narrowing. So we've actually put in an order today for a product to help narrow those. It will include some new running boards and then just a little product that runs along the side just to delineate that we want them to stay in the centre of the bridge.
Yeah.
So those have been ordered today, so hopefully they'll arrive shortly. They will need to be installed at the same time the posting goes. I've just thought it's a whole package.
Okay.
A question I've got about the narrowing, it's been a big issue, is a lot of the machinery, especially drills, 12 foot wide and can't go across the bridge, but they'll only do a 2-ton weight load, and tractors with drills or bulkies with drills. They're still not overweight, but there seems to be an appetite to narrow their bridges.
Yes, so the product that we've supplied is mountable. So it's just a guidance, so it's yellow and black, so it's easy to see, and there'll be reflective strips that however can be driven over if it is a wider but still meets the posting rules.
So some of those property owners and probably people that you've referred to have reached out to us, and we've reached out to them from Pass On Contact, and actually worked on a solution for that exact issue. So for the heavy vehicles, they need to sit to that centre of that bridge, but we do have those implements and things. This is sort of a raised piece that you can lighter loads, but wider loads.
And the other, how often are we doing engineer reports on these bridges? I guess, and what's the difference if we're having 2 different engineers with 2 different appetites for risk?
Yep, so for posted bridges, it's an annual review, and we are working with a bridging engineer that has 30+ years experience in this space, and has been very practical and pragmatic, while still recognising the risk of installing postings and everything like that, but been very good at working through with us all these sort of custom solutions and everything like that. So I'd say the person's very experienced and can recognise the use of our district and the types of these structures.
Practical and pragmatic, 2 wonderful words. Yeah, questions?
While still inspecting and doing that to the bridge review.
Anyone else? Right, I guess we'll have someone to just receive the report, huh? Yep, we received it. Thanks for the second it. All those in favour say aye. Aye. That gets carried. Thank you. Right, page 16. Where's weather?
That's the year of it that happens every year.
Yeah.
Robert yours. I need you to tell me a little bit the weather a bit, because I've just finished landmark. Welcome.
So we're here to discuss funding options relating to the flood event that occurred on and around the 3rd of October 2024. I'll summarise the report, but I'll take it as read. Cumulative rainfall data at the Danzies Pass Hotel peaked at 131 millimetres in a 48-hour period. And that suggests that many areas experienced a rainfall event that's somewhere between 1 in 20 and a 1 in 30 year event. The impact was focused on the Maniatoto ward, creating widespread demand for grading and spot metalling, and resulting in temporary road closures and restrictions, flooding, scouring, washouts, blocked culverts, debris build-up around bridges. So, emergency works funding is only being sought in the areas where the return period is greater than 1 in 10 years, and that's a requirement for, a current requirement for NZTA funding under work category 141. Rainfall in the Teviot Valley, Roxburgh, Millers Flat areas was more moderate and more equivalent to a 1 in 5 year event. So it's beyond the scope of what we're talking about here. The total cost of the response and recovery is expected to be a touch over $981,000. A 51% NZTA subsidy is expected to be approved in the coming weeks. That leaves $480,494 to be funded by council. Council maintains 2 emergency works reserve accounts. As at 30 June, the council-wide account had a surplus balance of approximately 2.6 million. The roading account is in deficit by approximately $525,000. Planning for the 2025 LTP will consider the rate that the roading emergency works reserves account deficit will be reduced. Council has seen similar weather events in January of 2023 and February 2024. Both qualified for NZTA subsidy. The council share for both of those events was funded from the roading emergency works account. The report in front of you considers 3 options: funding the $480,494 from the council-wide emergency works reserve account, funding it from the roading emergency works account, or declining the request to use emergency works funding and requiring the use of existing maintenance and renewal budgets and accepting the level of service impact that that would create. Declining the request to use emergency works funds is not recommended, as it would result in a deferral of maintenance with their immediate impact on level of service and increased long-term cost. Our recommendation is to fund the $480,494 from the council-wide emergency reserves account to minimise the impact on budgets and forward works programs, to avoid putting the roading emergency works funding further into deficit. Happy to take questions.
Thank you very much. Questions? Dana?
What happens if we don't get the 51% subsidy? No.
We will, I suppose, what we're asking for at this point is 484,000. If we didn't get the subsidy, and we've had indicative support, Paul Fleet, roading manager, and Carly Cameron from Portland Hogan, with a drive round with NZTA's funding advisor, and they were happy with what they saw. They thought it aligned with the dollars and the requests that we were making. The last contact I had was about a week ago, slightly more, and he indicated we would receive approval of that expenditure in weeks, not months. But valid question, there is a risk. We, at this point, are asking for 480,000 from the reserve account. We would consider the implications of what that meant. If we were unsuccessful, we may have to ask for more. We may look for ways to absorb it into our existing budgets.
It would be, we've had indication that it's likely to receive it, so it would be a rethink and a report back to council if there was any further implication on it, reserve council. But that drive over is done within a few days of the event, and they did visit all the major sites that were affected by that, and there was no concerns raised.
Just following on from Taylor's question, given that seems to be an increased amount of these type of events.
Yes.
Is it likely that NZTA is going to move the goalpost as to what triggers the emergency funding ability to apply?
Yes, they already have moved the goalposts, or they will move the goalposts from 1 July 2025, and they will go from funding 1 in 10 year events to 1 in 20 year events.
Okay, so that's
well, this one's still going to trigger that.
Yeah.
Most of the site so in the report there's all the list of all the locations where it was done. Some of those might not have triggered that piece. And I guess further to that question, we have done some work around both that deficit account and the frequency of the events over do you want to just talk to the period we looked at?
Yeah, so a similar question I suppose was posed by the finance team of, are we not just ending up deeper and deeper into a hole, and what's our plan going to be to climb back out of it? So I went and had a look at all of our emergency works funding applications to NZTA for the last 16 years, and that totaled about, well, the council's share of that, so our 49% of that was about $1.8 million. Now that equates to an annual sum of $117,000. So if we assume the same level of funding from NZTA moving forward, which we know is not realistic, we would probably want to be putting an amount aside equivalent to about $117,000 a year, if the last 16 years is reflective of what the next 16 years would look like.
Currently it's $50,000 is going into that.
So it's never been enough.
Yeah.
So we're putting in half.
Never gonna be
half-
over
it's the half of what we need.
my figures.
Except if we acknowledge that the goalposts are changing and they're only going to fund 1 in 20 years instead of 1 in 10 year events, then that means we should be looking at a figure of around $165,000.
And we're going to feed that amount into the long-term plan. And then there's also a plan around the current deficit and addressing that current deficit, using other funding streams that we have to bring that back up, but then also adjust the amount that's going into that reserve pot to ensure it's there and available to account for these things.
Yeah. You probably answered my question a little bit. So my logic would say is that this should be funded out of the roading bucket, because that's what it is, roading, and to take it from a bigger bucket doesn't make sense. But then there's the bigger picture issue, and you just touched on it then, saying, well, we need to look at what we're doing for the future. And then if we are going to then say, let's get rid of the deficit, we might choose to take it out of the bigger bucket, but that should be a separate decision that considers the big picture. And clearly, $50,000 currently is not enough, 116 is not enough, because that's the average in 16 years. It's not going any cheaper in that time, so forget that. It's choose figure of 300 is probably closer, and I'm heartened to hear that you're looking at for the long-term plan about what you might recommend going forward, because, you know, if we don't, we're just going to get a big hole.
And be back here with a deficit.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So my only view is that the option should be option 2, should come from the roading fund account, make that that hole bigger, and then you deal with that through other means. That's where it fits. It's sort of like saying I've got a problem with my my hall, but I'll take the money out of my footpaths budget. You don't do that.
I guess both budgets are designed as an act of God events,
Yeah.
so to speak. These weather events, one is in positive funding, one is in negative funding, but
that's a bit of a fallacy as well, because we're not in positive overall, so
correct.
it's kind of.
That amount paid to either, also, either option 1 or option 2 is not going to impact on our day-to-day operations in terms of our current funding and our current ability to maintain and do renewals this financial year.
Just food, with the reserve accounts, the deficit accounts, we've got over $10 million in deficit accounts, but we have to address them as LTP and get them back into credit. And so, that emergency roading one, that'll be now, if you take it out of there, it'll be about $1 million in deficit.
Correct.
The ability to repay that and rebuild that up over time will take us $300,000. That's 0.5% on rates, because this is rates funded. So we are looking at options to how we can address the deficit accounts, but it is because of the scale of them, and you may recall the workshop, we'll probably look to do that over a 10-year timeframe. That adds 4 to 6% in rates. And so it's a balance in it. Hence the recommendation was to take it out of the existing large sum of money, because we're having to address quite a lot of deficit accounts in this North Government.
So the deficit will be picked up when we readjust it later.
But it'll be picked up over time.
But do you not think though that taking it from the roading bucket highlights that that's where the problem is, because the problem is not in the emergency event bucket, which, to be fair, we're setting aside for AFA. That's my concern, is that you're hiding the issues with that roading bucket by not taking it out of there.
It'll just take us longer to pay that roading emergency fund, get that back into deficit.
It'll keep going down.
But we are looking at alternative options in the long-term plan anyway for taking care of those deficits.
Yeah, I mean, roading might be one the 50,000 could be what you needs the interest charge on the $500,000 bill type thing. You know, so could you do that out of loan funding? I mean, we're looking at everything, but the quantum of our deficit accounts are in the millions.
So one other point to note is we do have our fuel tax income going to this point to address the deficit, and it's about $162,000 because we recognise that deficit prior to the annual plan, and to address that, so the fuel tax revenues being directed into that to address the deficit, and that's $162,000 per year, give or take. So that's kicking off that process now, as well as obviously the wider deficit conversation.
So there's theoretically just over $200,000 going in there annually with that. Yes.
To address the deficit of $500,000.
Oh, well, there's the 50,000 that's going in there all the time, but we recognise that deficit and getting that back. So that 162 is also going in there primarily around addressing the deficit.
And what's the flow on effect of putting that fuel tax money into there? Or is that not going if that's going into there?
It's the exact same context. It's not offsetting other expenditure. So
where are we leaning?
Up to you and the council, and we'll do whatever you say. But the team came with that recommendation because they thought that was the best option.
I just like with you, Tony, that the bucket should recognise the whole, and then we should look at the big picture about how we're going to fund not just that roading emergency, but other emergencies as well as part of that bigger picture, and and formalise the fuel tax side of things and how to address the deficit as a separate exercise. This is about paying a bill effectively, moment, and if you don't take it, put it on an account, put it in a deficit, just taking cash out of the account anyway, and it's really offsetting what's in positive. And I think the bigger picture that we'll work through in the long-term plan about what we do for the future, and that'll include addressing the whole. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So your recommendation is option 2. Not the.
Yes, we met with the finance team and talked through both options. And
did they have a preference?
Their recommendation was the fact to take as our recommendation, option 1, but we were guided by the finance team for that. I don't believe it has any impact on our.
Operationally, it doesn't impact roading beyond what Peter's referring to of how quickly those deficits get repaid.
Which is why I think actually this is the correct option.
Option 1.
Do you think though, given that we're a council that's in a deficit on a whole, that this highlights our issues with resilience and keeps it front of mind?
That we need to pay it back as quickly as possible. And if this is how we do it, then I think that's the way we should go. To pay back the debt. You find whatever way you can to pay back the debt. You don't just go further and just leave it.
Yeah, but you do that as a big, you do it as a big picture.
Well, but what I'm saying is, take it, if you're going to take it from one pot to actually subsidise another pot, it's the logical thing to do, because then you'll actually be able to bring that up. The more you go into debt, the longer it's going to take you to pay it off interest.
Not looking at the big picture though, you're just ignoring the big picture about how to fund everything else. It makes no sense.
Big picture. They're already actually highlighted that they're starting to put more money in there. So I think we pay off the debt.
Well, that's the problem, and that's the problem that I have with it, is that it's not paying off the debt, because we're all in debt.
Yeah.
The whole thing is debt, so it's not taking money out of the bucket that actually has money in it, because it's all debt.
Yeah, but it's spending money from an account that's got funds that are there, but not for that purpose. It's just that does not make sense. That is not what you do. My logic, that's not how you run things. You don't go and rob Peter to pay Paul. That's just backwards. So anyone else want to have a discussion about it? We'll get a couple of different recommendations for you. Person?
I guess I just want to know what's going to have the minimum impact on ratepayer. And if it does, if neither has,
Well,
if neither option has an impact,
well,
because one, in my mind,
yes
one
and
will
no.
have.
I mean, if the deficit gets bigger, then we will rate fund the community to repay that deficit account, get back into credit. But we still have to continue to build up if you take it from the emergency, the wider council emergency fund, then that's already in surplus, 2.6 or whatever it is. We'll take 480 out of that. We'll have to continue to build that up again.
And I guess there's two questions. The emergency fund that is there is actually not just for any other emergency either. Different emergencies can be different emergencies, correct? So it might not be the earthquake, might not happen. It could happen, it just happened 5 minutes ago.
Could be fire.
Yeah, fire emergency and infrastructure. But it's not specific to roading. But we have got a specific roading emergency fund, which is in deficit. Yeah. By
500,000.
500.
And there was obviously that 2023 and 2024 decision to take that account further into deficit with that 90 and 104 and 90 over the last 2 years previous.
So when we go in
That's my
deficit,
concern with that, is that this would be the third time that we dip out of that emergency fund, and that is hiding the problem, and we're not covering it.
So that came out of roading.
I think they need to vote.
Yeah.
If you do what the recommendation says, you might as well get rid of the roading, emergency fund. There's no point having bloody.
just
It's like gone.
right.
What's the point? Just have a big bus. But then that's, doesn't make any sense.
I think we know the history.
Do you know, because this was, my understanding was this was actually a threat to this emergency fund that was established by Rating Properties connected to through this, as opposed to the roading funds which are established by Rating every property across the district. So you might just want to consider how that spread of cost happens when it hits rates. Because it'll be a smaller group of people.
All the people in town, again.
And one of the most rural roads where most of the damage is occurring, guess what? They don't have connect to their places. Oh, they haven't got 3 waters.
So we're going round and round here.
Oh, that's thinking, just for me, there's further support. but
To be fair,
option two.
the roading reserve, the roading emergency funding should be getting funded, or look at a bigger pot of road. Because there are issues that happen with our, what do you call it? Nature events. We are having a lot of them, or our infrastructure is not good enough to handle the events we've got. In this situation, we've got to just find how to pay our half share, hoping that Transport New Zealand will give us our half share. And some of those roads, whether you like them or not, are going to be like this for the next 100 years.
Can you just, I know you said it before, but in the report it says that those January 2023 and February 2024 money that we took out came from the emergency event reserve, not the emergency roading reserve.
They had from the road, they did come from the road.
So that's incorrect.
I'd have to go into Magic and have a look at the name of the general ledger account.
It's got the number beside it, but I can't see the number beside any of the other ones.
The paper to council and the decision.
So that's on page 217. Page 2 of the report.
1750 is right.
Yeah. So that's like for it, I think that's just it's copy of all the words in the code.
Too many words called emergency.
But 1750 is a roading cost in place.
Okay.
Right, so where we at?
I'll move something if you want. Guess what it's going to be?
So basically, option 2 is taking the fund out of the emergency council's emergency works reserve account.
For roading.
For
Roading, where the cost lies. And if that be the case, when we come to a long-term plan, clearly we're in deficit on our roading account. And Neil's probably point I did pick up then is actually it's a roading cost, so we should be rating more for roading, including the cost of having emergency rating rather than having a fund. And if we look at the value there, that's really 1% of our rate as an emergency funding for roading. But to me, in my short lifetime in those regions, it's not going to go away. It's just our road and resilience. If we take it out of option 1, we fund it out of the council's general reserve account, which we're still going to have to credit to roading or associate or link to roading over time. That's to fix the same problem, correct?
Well, we'll want to build that, continue to build that fund up
Or which road will be included in,
No,
just general.
that's as Julie pointed out, comes from,
So we would look to pay the next wide piece back, and then obviously there's the $500,000 deficit in that. So, from our roading point of view, there's no real difference in the piece. It's more just the council funding.
So the roading one, option 2, is that Thornbrook pays that contributing to that and not free?
Maybe we should understand, is the council-wide emergency works reserve account, is that funded? How?
Yeah.
We probably should know the answer to that. Well,
so Julie said that one.
As a road.
No, yeah, you're talking about previous things, the roading one's just roading.
roading definitely district wide, but the question is that the council-wide emergency works reserve account, which is the bigger bucket, how's that funded? If that's not funded by the same people that fund the roading things, then it's the wrong bucket.
So the council works,
Well, civil defence emergency management is funded across the district.
so council-wide emergency works fund is funded by
Emergency management, so it's just a thing. So I would have.
People don't even pay their civil defence bill to this council.
Doesn't that sound that should be from the council-wide emergency works fund because it was an event, an emergency fee?
I think it's checked.
That'd be a good idea.
Thank you.
What's that?
You want to know with the
It is.
The bucket should be one, but if it's self-insured, you should just have a self-insurance bucket.
It's for a roading emergency. It was a council-wide.
No, it's a roading emergency, nothing but roads.
Only roads were affected. Yeah, only roads though.
Roads.
Just think it's really important we do get those buckets right in the right place. And then how you deal with the bigger picture about funding stuff and that's separate to this.
I think highlights that
The
bigger
highlights
picture
the
of
bigger picture, need to sort it out.
resilience and the increasing likelihood of these events
Yeah.
and having a plan that is not a $50,000 a year plan.
And obviously through the LTP and the discussion, this might be prioritised over something else that doesn't potentially have continued dipping into it for that or something like that. That would be a decision.
Because when it comes to that council-wide reserve one day, oh, it's all gone.
Yeah.
We spent it on something else that we weren't funding it for.
Yeah.
Whoops.
So Julie's got that.
But-
money,
but-
so
But
What
if
Robin
you vote for option 1 now, that doesn't preclude you getting it right. If those two funds are funded on a different basis, it's just a matter of correcting it down the track. I mean, this isn't setting a precedent. It's just coping with a problem in the most expeditious way, and then you can correct everything at a later date.
With another report and a change in resolution. That makes no sense.
And of course you could pay it back, but actually we're just creating more work. for the sake.
To save it and pay it back. So is the expectation, if they did follow, option 1, would the expectation be that there would be interest paid on the limit should borrow from that particular fund? Because that's.
Actually doing my city.
That would trigger. Anyway, you're going to have to pay interest on it, it's like a week.
Just need to have one bucket, let's maybe take it.
Well, was Peter going away?
Better go check.
Need to go and check with Donna, who pays for that emergency
So
account.
let's wait till he comes back. Relax for a minute. But I guess the bigger question is, roading resilience is something we're going to face down the road. And I'd like to, I'll check with Donna, because we had that 500,000 in the credit, if some of it was used for affordability in the COVID, the interest component of that, remember that discussion? The roading reserve.
Just don't put money into it, to the council-wide one for a year.
But it's a discussion we need to have on the road in the future, don't we, for resilience.
It's very much a resilience discussion for the entire organisation about how we're going to manage an increasing likelihood of severe weather events.
Councillor Patterson was citing and heard left this morning, some of our infrastructure spend. You know?
And then when you look at Smithson and,
It's all right, we've still got time.
Yeah.
They probably should.
That's. Yeah.
Need your little electric scooters, walk around this place quickly.
The team are now referring to the Oracle, which is the Magic Enterprise system. And, but the MS Teams need the answer the minute they have. So they're all beavering away, digging out the numbers right now.
So do we?
We can go on to something else.
What would you like
Yes.
to do?
Leave it on the table till we get the information.
That's,
Just for 5 minutes, 10 minutes.
I'm saying,
I'm just going to say, Mum, Joe's, you can leave them up on the table, let's take it offline. You can continue with your meeting and we'll bring this matter back before the close of business today.
wonderful, thank you very much.
Was that someone second there?
I'm going to.
Yeah. They didn't move, see that. No. Move it. Put over to
Right.
Three Waters.
Three Waters.
Well, I didn't get any more interested in. It's cost them money.
Chapter 24.13 page, November wastewater compliance status updates.
I take this report as read. I have a summary for the report as that both Alexandra and Cromwell continues to operate within the consent limits with compliance sample results for October. For Cromwell, it was the 12th consecutive month with compliant result for nitrogen, indicating that the site has maintained compliance for a year now. Next week, during the first week of October, we experienced a significant wet weather event with approximately 140 rain for 3 days. Overland surface flow and fogburn flow into the ponds, exceeding the capacity. To prevent damage to the infrastructure, we had to discharge treated wastewater to the fogburn. And regular notifications were sent to the regional council and Ogaha. The discharge to the fogburn was a temporary measure to mitigate the risk to the ponds, and the final discharge occurred on the 14th of October. Yes, that's all. Thank you.
I do have a question, but first, what a positive report? Probably the most positive one we've had in a long time.
I like Queenstown. Love to read Queenstown's.
Oh. The proposal to install a trial brush aerator at Roxburgh, similar to the one in Cromwell, does that fit under existing budgets?
Yes, it does. It goes over budget. So we had the budgets in for addressing the compliance issues and then one of the actions that we need to do that, so we budgeted for that.
Do we think that on the basis of how well it's gone in Cromwell, that would potentially have a positive?
Well, we're really hopeful, and even on that, with that promise, Hans, we had a $3.6 million project budgeted for this year to do the nitrogen removal that we will be coming back to you with a paper later on, but we're thinking do that project, particularly given the government's indications that this national wastewater treatment standards coming up. So that once we know what those standards are, we can look at the need for this project because we're compliant.
Any other questions? No. Okay, so the recommendation is that we receive a report. So do I have a mover and seconder? Kramer and Lindsay, all those in favour?
Yeah.
Yes, carried. 24.13.9 is status reports for Cromwell Rising and Cromwell Drinking Water updates.
Okay. I'll take the reports as read. There's just a couple of things I'd like to just tell you about before you ask any questions or want any clarifications. The Cromwell Rising, mate, this will probably be the last report for it because the job's actually complete. The only item that we've got to address there is some contractual work that we're getting some help with to look at a variation that's been put to us on what's perceived as unforeseen conditions by the contractor. We're getting some independent support on understanding how much of a risk that is to council in terms of what may have to be paid or not. We're pretty confident with our stance on the issue, but you know, we have to, you always look at things from your side, so that's why we need some independence to look at it. We're going through that process at the moment, but if you put that aside, the contractor's done a great job on the project. It's been a good piece of work done. We've had a good outcome. We're not over budget. The timeline is pretty good. And there was little destruction in Cromwell that people were sort of going to be unaware of. So I think a lot of the public were expecting what was going to happen. And once it all went through, they were quite pleased that it happened quickly and got reinstated quite well. So I think in general terms, that project has gone very well. Yeah, that's in here. The variation is, even if we had to pay the whole lot, which I very much doubt we will, we would be still be within the budget. Yeah. So.
I think the other thing is there's been another couple of pieces of work added into this, done under this contract that are actually funded from other project budgets to do with this bit of work that got done from the roading team. We've already had Ashburn happening on site, which was really good. The contractors got to work together on that and a bit of work, pre-work done for the common water treatment plant upgrades. Still go under construction soon.
Yeah. So an example of that, I suppose, is Lode Lane, bus park area. The pavement there was in poor condition, and we worked with our roading team to get that resolved and replaced fully.
No, they're not significant, just like perception.
Any questions? So the recommendation to receive the report, do I have a mover and second? Stu and Sally, all those in favour? Against?
Yeah, there was just one other thing. It's too important. I talked that first one, the other one's the overall Cromwell water treatment upgrade. The designs are well advanced there. We're getting a much better picture of what the overall estimated cost will be, and we'll have a report up to you in December to give us clearance, hopefully, to go ahead and start to procure the work. So,
So that everybody's still happy to move
The only thing I would say, it's really great, these reports that we're getting make life so much easier for understanding where things are at, so they are really great reports to be able to read.
Thank you.
You did, yeah. It's on first.
Right, do you want us to take us back, Stewie?
Yeah, we'll go back to page 216 and the discussion regarding the options of option 1 and option 2, where the funding and the deficit will lie.
Yeah.
So who's going to take us through that? Oh, we have three. Well, yeah,
Collected now.
clearly money and deficit is important at the moment.
People can run.
So I've been listening online, if I may, and the question is, are we funding something that's specific for a general purpose in terms of roading is a district-wide rate, and is the emergency reserve fund based on a district-wide reserve? Donna will correct me if I'm wrong, but from 2021, for a start, there's been no rates put into that reserve since 2021.
And just which reserve? Just to make sure.
I'm not talking about the roading one, the caps one.
Emergency wide works reserve account.
It has, however, earned interest on its surplus balance. That interest comes from the entire district who are in deficit. So effectively, it's an internal loan that reserve has linked to various other parts of the business. So if you look at it from that perspective, there is a general district-wide component to it because it is its interest comes from all over the business. We are planning to rate from a general rate from 2025-26 in the first year of the LTP to start adding to it. So it is, for all intents and purposes, is treated as a general rate. So I don't believe that there's any problem in terms of the discussion that you might be having around whether it's funding, different people are paying for different things, that it may have been created, and I can't answer that because I can't go back past beyond 2021. That may have been created by the Three Waters stuff, but the council, I think, made a decision to treat it as a general reserve at that time, and that's how we treated it since 2021. So its funding has been from a general rate, or from a general district-wide position, indirectly through the interest that it earns, and we are treating it as a general district-wide reserve for the first year of the LTP going forward to start putting money into it.
What's it in credit?
It's in credit at the moment, yeah.
So, right, Neil? Like I hear what you're saying, we haven't put any money in since 2021. I'm pretty sure if you get back into the records, you'd find it was Three Waters funded prior to that, and the council said it's at a level we can leave it at as the other pressures came our way. The fact that it's earned some interest because it's been borrowed out says that's still money that's come from how it was previously funded. And if we've got an intention to change it and start adding to it in FY25 or FY26, then there'll be a change in the funding policy, then the council will have to resolve to do that. So I think for me, the important thing is we need to know how it has been funded, because if we're going to change it, then this council will need to make that as a decision just like we decide not putting any money towards it.
Was that it was the general rate that was funding the top up to that account. It was stopped in the 21 LPP due to COVID, and ways that was minimising the rates increase through that. And it's never been reinstated. It had already been she informed me that it was to be brought up for the next LTP to be reinstated and it would come through the general rate.
So there's two conflicting pieces of advice. One says it came from Three Waters, one said it came from general rates.
I know, but with all due respect, where the advice has come from, you know, I typically follow my CFO on financial matters, and I follow Judy on water matters. And Leanne's no longer with us, you know, so, you know, on the basis of what we've heard, I think we can generally accept that it is a general rate that funded that.
Some dinosaurs can't.
I just have a memory around that COVID time, and most of us were here then, where we made a decision that was out of a reserve account of about $500,000, and it went against the rural community. I'm not sure, and we said at the time, I can't remember, I can't recall, and we said this was for the best in the interest of the district, but it actually did go against rural communities. So if you're thinking about that being rated from, you know, if it came from Three Waters, and as far as urban, there has been things done where I just cannot remember the life of me what it was.
Right. Where are we at, Tony?
Can you clarify, Tracy asked a question earlier on, is there an impact on the ratepayer depending on what bucket it comes out of? And is that significant if it comes out of a bucket that's already in a deficit?
For both the emergency event fund and the roading activity are coming through the general rate. So it's more just how you wish to downpay the deficit of the roading, which would increase general rate. So both will increase the impact general.
And the deficit is currently earmarked to be downpaid at about $210,000 a year, but will be reassessed at the next long-term plan.
It will be reassessed next year, and it's likely that there will be a suggestion to top it up at $150,000 a year based on my analysis of the last 16 years, plus a discussion around repayment. And it's likely that that will be equivalent to this year, which is the fuel tax of about, I don't know what that looks like for next year, but about 160. So in my mind, we're looking to repay the deficit over 3 years, plus 150,000 as the BAU.
But going forward.
But obviously the repayment of the deficit is more of a financial decision, and that's only what will be, able to do.
Yeah, we don't need to deal with that today, the financial part, we need to deal with this issue. So anyone had more discussion on option 2? Tracy, what's your thoughts? Effectively, it comes out of the road, the way I see it, if it comes out of the road and emergency funding, you've got options to fund that going forward before we look at the deficit anyway, financially, correct?
Only by 162. Plus the, that's current.
So part of the long-term plan, we will be looking at increasing the 50,000 that goes in to along based on the calculation and stuff. We are starting to address that deficit using the fuel tax. There may be a conversation around that being even more to address that deficit faster to ensure we don't get into a position where that's part of the long-term plan conversation. I don't think there is, because of the general rate reserve piece, I do not think there's a large impact on whether option 1 or option 2 is chosen. That just potentially puts the roading at a slightly longer timeliness and getting that deficit addressed.
It also highlights that that's where the problem is.
Yeah.
And that's the problem that we need to address. And if we're still going to move option 2, I'm happy to see it and I think
Well, and the reason I'm picking on that is because if you head down the path of what you just said about 160,000 or whatever, 16 years, and if you didn't go, and you got that at the roading emergency funding, if we've paid someone from another bucket, you won't know what it's actually cost you. The true cost is not able to be seen. If you want me to, I'll move the recommendation, but option 2, which is the roading emergency work.
Option 2, Neil seconded, Tamer seconded. Any other recommendations? Any other? No, all those in favour? Guys, carried. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, team. Thank you for the discussion. It's good to have a robust discussion of those things.
That's it? Yeah, I'm gonna know that.
It's not.
No, you don't.
You don't have to put it. We took it.
We took it. That's a recommendation. We passed resolution. The recommendation doesn't matter.
Right.
Well, it doesn't matter. But
Well done, guys. Look at us. You caught us up.
Oh, well done.
Good job. Now we're on to lunch.
Oh.
It's not there. We will be back in place 1 o'clock.
You knew that when you said that, didn't you?
When it doesn't matter what we've.
Right.